Hi, this is Pastor Dave, and welcome to the final hour. This is our second episode of our special on inside access to the IDF. Last week when I did that, some people commented on me because I was showing you things that were taking place down in Gaza, and people were saying, well, what is the media really saying? And since last week's episode, there's been two things I want to kind of highlight and show to you just to make you aware of how off base what we see in America, in the Western world, from the media. There was a headline that just came out because what Israel did is that they bombed Lebanon and there was some UN peacekeeping forces nearby. And the AP came out with a big article saying Israel is bombing nearby UN peacekeepers. And you hear that and you go, well, why would Israel do that? The United Nations are there for peacekeeping. Why would they bomb the peacekeepers? Here is the real part of the story. Here's what you're not being told and what we're not seeing here in the Western media. What Israel was bombing, and they used drones, they used grenades. The headlines was they dropped grenades on the peacekeepers. They dropped grenades onto construction equipment, to bulldozers and construction equipments. Now, why would they do that? Because they have told them, this is in Lebanon now, so this is Hezbollah, who the Lebanese government has told Hezbollah to disarm, and they're not. So there's tensions there. So Israel's paying close attention to what Hezbollah is doing in the north. And when they tried to use this construction equipment to reestablish the infrastructure to launch weapons and missiles into Israel, Israel says, nope, no way. Now, did the peacekeeping units know that construction equipment was there? Yes. Did they know that the warning is being put out, do not try to rebuild the infrastructure? Yes. Why were they there? See, what I'm saying is they knew exactly what was going on. And Israel, through drones, were able to drop grenades on the equipment and destroy the equipment. Had nothing to do with the UN peacekeeping forces, where we get the story that Israel is attacking the United Nations and the peacekeepers. That was one example. Another one, it's somewhat hilarious on what the truth is and what we're being told. The second one was a high-rise building in Gaza. If you're following this at all, you probably saw the report. Actually, Israel destroyed two high-rise buildings in Gaza. Now, what we're not being told is that, first of all, they dropped leaflets down there telling everybody you need to get out. They are telling everybody in Gaza City to get out of Gaza City. They're going to come in. They're going to take it out. They're going to remove Hamas finally. They're going to finish the job, basically. And they're telling the civilians, the citizens of Gaza City, to go to the south so you'll be safe. Well, there was two high-rise buildings there. They are being used by Hamas for intelligence. And Israel said, we're going to take these buildings out. Get out of here. We're not told that. We're just seeing the bombs that are being fired, taking down the buildings, and being told that Israel is going after civilian life and going after apartment buildings. I have video. In fact, I sent to my wife, look, what do you think about this? I have actual video of what was taking place there. Before Israel destroyed those buildings, especially the second one, before Israel destroyed that second high-rise building, there's residents, or there's people, there's somebody, we're assuming they're residents, they're outside taking down the solar panels. They know the building's going to be destroyed. They know what it's being used for. They know Hamas has a headquarters there. They know it's infrastructure for intelligence for Hamas, and they know that Israel says, we're taking this out. So what do? They go outside and they start to remove the solar panels. They don't want their solar panels to be destroyed, I guess. I have actual video of that. I bet we didn't see that on the Western news. See, that's why I'm doing this series. After having a chance to go to Israel, to spend some time with several IDF units, to walk in their shoes, to spend time with them, you get a totally different picture. Because the picture that you get is the truth. Now, today on the second episode, I want to spend time in the Golan. You might hear about the Golan Heights. This is a huge area. This is over 700 square miles. It's in the northern part of Israel. And what's unique about the Golan area is that the Golan borders three different countries. It borders Lebanon, it borders Syria, and down towards the end, it borders Jordan. Now, Jordan's not an issue. Syria is a major issue, and Lebanon somewhat is an issue. So if you're up in the northern part of Israel, in the Golan, you have to be careful for what's going on in Lebanon, and especially in Syria. When you look at the Golan Heights, it's amazing ground because it's perfect for vineyards. It's perfect for orchards between the ground, the soil itself, and the climate. So it's very lush. It's very green. It should be used for vineyards and orchards like it was before. Now it's a military zone because Israel is defending themselves against what could be happening both in Lebanon and in Syria. And again, when you look at this, this is Mount Hermon. Mount Hermon is over 9,200 feet above sea level. And when you look at the Golan, this whole area, it goes from minus almost 700 feet to 9,200 feet plus. So it's about 10,000, square foot difference when you look at from the bottom to the top. Mount Hermon, I don't. I've been there many times. I've been to the Golan many times. I've been to Caesarea Philippi. I've been to some cities. We do tours there. But to actually go up in Mount Hermon on the top of that, this is a recreation area. This is with that kind of elevation in the wintertime or when there's snow there, you can go skiing. So residents and those who live in Israel, they would go to Mount Hermon to have a good time, to have a family time. When there's no snow there, what they have there is they have tubing and they have go-karts and they have different things. Well, we're showing you pictures right now of what you can see up there. So Mount Hermon is designed for families to do just a getaway, to have a fun day away. Last week, I showed you about a family center that was attacked and bombed by Hezbollah. Again, a family center. This is not military ground. This is civilian ground. Now, Mount Hermon is important because of the height of it, but they're bombing again civilian areas. When I say they, we're talking about Hezbollah. So what should be a family center, what should be a day of activity, what should be a day of fun, now is a military zone. And it's a place where the families cannot go with this. If you want to know about the Golan and the whole area, again, in the Bible it's called Bashan. You see it in Deuteronomy 4, you can find it in 1 Kings 4, Psalm 22, Isaiah chapter 2. In Joshua chapter 21, it's one of the refugee cities. And most importantly, when I take groups there, I do go to Caesarea Philippi, which is Matthew 16. And the reason I take people there, because that's where Jesus asked his disciples a very important question. He asked them, "Who do you say that I am?" Folks, that's a question all of us, every one of us has to answer. Who do you say that Jesus is? So this is all part of the Golan Heights. But the particular part I was in was where the military activity is taking place. I wouldn't take a group there. We wouldn't go near there. In fact, I can show you pictures here. There's active landmines that are still there. When they say stay on the path, they mean stay on the path, because if you get off the path, there are landmines there. And you can see old military bunkers. You can see where the wars have taken place in the past. You can see where they put these metal crosses. I call them crosses, but they're metal pieces. That's to keep vehicles out, so to keep bombs or suicide terrorists to come in, or tanks to come in, both in the past and now. So you can just see that they still have to keep these things active. You're looking at a place where it should be vineyards and orchards, and they have to keep it active to make sure that they're not being attacked. And when I take you up there, again, I want you to kind of to meet a couple families. There is a Druze community not too far away from them. They're more on the Lebanon side. When you look at the Syria side, there's a lot of things happening on the Syria side, but more on the Lebanon side, you can see the map where, again, it's under the border of Lebanon. There's a Druze community there. And I was fascinated just to go to a Druze community because I didn't know much about the Druze. I was wondering, okay, is this a religion or is it a nationality? Because they call themselves Druze. So what is the religion? How do you become part of that religion? So I had a lot of questions there. I knew that there was Hezbollah had attacked the area. I had some knowledge of that, but I was not prepared for what I saw, because once we get there, there was they call it a soccer field. They call it a football field, but it's a soccer field. Now I want to have you kind of just close your eyes and picture this. It's Shabbat Saturday. It's a day of rest. The families are just enjoying a day of rest. Kids are out just playing, just like here in America. What would the kids do? They would go out and play in the park. If your kids are out playing in a park, playing soccer in a park, you would assume everything is okay. I was looking forward to going and seeing the site because I knew that Hezbollah had fired missiles into this soccer field. Again, it's civilian. It's not a military facility. It's not military personnel. They were looking to hurt civilians, and they did. Actually, 12 children were killed in this attack. A rocket came in, and 12 children were killed. We got pictures here. They released the names, the photos of the 12 killed in this attack. And it just, I knew that took place. That was July 24th of 2024, so just over a year ago. So I was aware of the tragedy that took place there. But like many people, we went, oh my goodness, that's tragic, and how sad, and to have children, and I know those feelings. I had those emotions. I wasn't prepared for what I saw and the damage that took place there. You can see the fencing here, how the fencing, this rocket just destroyed the fencing. This is not just a piece of metal being flown, through the sky and landing on the ground. This was explosive, designed to kill, maim, and destroy. There's a concrete building here. Look at the damage that they did to the concrete. Look at the walls on this concrete building. You can see where the shrapnel took and just destroyed that. You can imagine what it would do to human flesh, especially children. Again, knowing the tragedy that took place, it broke my heart. But then we had an appointment that I really wasn't prepared for. I was asked, would you like to meet some of the survivors of that day? And of course I said yes. I want to hear what they went through. I want to hear what they were thinking. I want to hear what it was like. I wasn't prepared to meet the father of one of the children. When you look at this area, again, Mount Hermon, just on the base of Mount Hermon. This is a family recreation place. This is a place where families can go and enjoy a day. What it's become, this has become a military zone. What this means is those living in Israel are basically prisoners in their own country. They can't go and have a good time. They can't go and have fun. They should be able to do that. They should be able to do that in Gaza. Gaza has more beachfront than Tel Aviv does. But they can't because of the terrorism that's taken place. And to see Mount Hermon and to come down to the base of Mount Hermon and to know that the families that want to go up there, they can't because they're prisoners. It's not safe to do that. And then sitting down and having the father agree to meet with us and to talk with me and to answer questions. And I didn't even know what to ask him once I met him. And this little village, it's a little nice little town, a little village, a little city. And it's known for its bakeries. So we went to the site, we saw the site. I was asking questions to make sure I understood everything, the layout of it. They're turning it into, what they're doing, there's a lot of construction going on now because they're turning the site into a memorial. And what they're showing now, this construction going on, and they're basically taking and they're planting trees. They're planting 12 trees, one for each of the children that were killed. When I say children, they were between the ages of 10 and 16. So they were kids and teenagers. And they're turning it into a memorial. And in the back over there, it was taped off with orange, do not caution tape, basically, do not enter. And I was asking, what was that? That's where that concrete building is. Well, there's bicycles there, there's scooters there that these kids were riding. And they're still there. And they're leaving them there as a reminder, saying they were riding scooters. They were riding their bicycles. They were having a good time. And this attack comes from the terrorists. And you can see what it did to the scooters. I mean, they caught on fire. They're just charred. And when you see that, and I think about a 6-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old riding his or her bicycle and losing their life for that. The lies and deceit that were being told from the media, the picture were not being given. And then once we saw the site, we said, well, we're going to go and meet with one of the fathers of the children who was killed. And we went to a bakery. This little village, little city is known for its bakery. They're known for their pastries. So I thought, okay, well, we'll just go and sit down and maybe have a cup of coffee and have a conversation. But it was unbelievable, the food that they served. They brought us all kinds of pastries. They sat down, and I didn't say it out loud, but I'm sitting there thinking that this man just over a year ago lost his daughter, his 12-year-old daughter. I want to tell you his story in a minute. And as he lost his daughter, here he is meeting with us, and the hospitality is incredible. This is the kind of people we're talking about. We don't get this. We don't get this truth as far as what kind of people we're talking about. I don't have the same understanding that if I were to go meet with a Hamas leader, that they would have this kind of hospitality. that they would treat us this way. And to have this dad just kind of just lay out all these pastries, and these are amazing pastries, and say, just enjoy it. He wanted to bring hospitality to us. And as he was there, you can see a picture of, I asked him if I could take a picture with him, and he agreed, and he so generously allowed me to take this picture with him. And as we sat down, he put his cell phone down, and I noticed in the back of his cell phone this picture I'm showing you here. And I knew that was his daughter, but I asked him, I said, I see the picture of your cell phone. And he showed it to me. And then he played around the phone and he showed me a picture of her. So you'll see in the back, that's what he carries around every day, the back of his cell phone with his daughter's picture. And I'm showing the actual picture of his daughter as we had this conversation. Now, as we were speaking, I did have an IDF member there with me because we needed an interpreter. The father does not speak English. So, and again, not even speaking English and being so gracious. So we had a Hebrew interpreter as we sat there and talked about it. And it just, to hear the story, the father sat, and again, this is just, it's just a year old. And I asked, I said, can you tell me about that day and what it felt like and what did you experience and what did you see? What I did not know or did not realize was that he is in the medical field. He is basically what we would call in America, he's a paramedic. And him and his wife were at home on their couch, he said, and they could see the park from their house. So they were that far away. He said he heard the sirens go off, the warning sirens that there's a rocket or a missile en route. Then before they could even move, he heard the explosion. Then he saw the black smoke. And his father looked me in the eye and he said in Hebrew, he said, and I knew my daughter was dead. And when he said that, the chills ran up and down my body. He just, on his couch, when he experienced it and felt it, he knew that. So him and his wife obviously immediately ran towards the park. And he said he told his wife, you find the daughter and I'm gonna bring, he's a paramedic. I'm gonna see if anybody needs help. And he beat his wife there by a few steps. And I have to say it, the first body he saw on the ground, he didn't know who it was at first. The first body he saw on the ground was his daughter. Can you imagine knowing in your gut that your child is hurt, seeing what just took place, and the first body you see, not knowing if she's dead or alive at this point, it's your own daughter. And next to her was another body who was also deceased. And then the wife is there, of course. And he, in tears, he gave the daughter to the wife. And he went out and provided medical care for those. He actually went over and started to save lives. And in this conversation, and with help with the interpreter, who also remembers the event and was part of the IDF who showed up, said that he actually did save a couple lives. There was over 40 people, I believe the number was 42 people who were injured. 12 were dead, 42 were injured. And here dad is with his deceased daughter, continuing on to help others. This is the kind of people that we're meeting in Israel. This is the kind of truth that needs to be told. These are the kind of stories that need to be brought. And as I interviewed this and as I asked for a picture to be taken a picture with him, I said, I want to tell America your story. I want to make sure people in the West hear the truth about this because we're getting lies and deceit. We're being told how Israel is bombing this and Israel is going after children and Israel is trying to, take out peacekeepers or trying to, starve people. That's what we're being told. And not many people really understand Israel. Not many people will do the study and to really seek out the truth. And I told this man, I promised this father that I would bring his story back. And that's what I'm doing here. So thank you for watching this and understanding this. On the way out of town, again, this little small village town, there's a memorial there, which I'll show you a picture of here. And you see the 12 pictures and 12 names. It's a constant reminder of what took place there. And it's interesting too. It's sad, but it's interesting because I was asking about, once he shared his story with me, I really didn't want to ask about, being a Druze and the community and what it was, but I asked the interpreter, and the IDF soldier did ask him. I said, okay, to be a Druze, what does this mean? Is it a religion? Is it a nationality? To say you're Jewish, I understand that, but to call yourself a Druze, what is that? And he said it's a religion, but they don't advertise it. They don't teach it. You can't really understand the history of it or the depth of it unless, I want to get this correct, unless you are sworn into the religion as a priest. And I said, well, how come the average person can't understand what their religion is? And I believe because some of it contradicts Judaism, and they don't want to contradict Judaism because they're part of Israel. I mean, they are Israeli citizens. That is their land. Do not, he said, do not call them Arabs. So, but Israel is their land. They go back biblically. They go back to the Bible. They go back to Moses' father-in-law, Jethro. And when you go back to Jethro, he was a Midian priest, going back to Exodus chapter 2, verse 16. So they trace their roots back to Moses and back to the Bible. And it's just fascinating. But here's what he said. This was the sad part. What they believe in is reincarnation. And this might be why we don't get a lot about their religion. And he said it's important to them. It's very, very important to know the exact second one of their loved ones passes away. And I said, well, okay, explain this to me. Well, they believe that the soul, whatever, the reincarnation, it leaves one body the second it passes away, and it goes into a baby being born. So what a family member would do, they would try to find out what baby was born that exact second. And they may live saying, okay, that is my daughter. My daughter continues on living. Obviously, that's not biblical. Obviously, that does not be supported by the Bible. There is no reincarnation. We either have heaven or hell for a final destination, but it was fascinating. But it was a little sad, too, to think that where's the hope? Where's the hope for eternal life? But anyhow, I wanted to bring this picture to you. I want to show you this one more headline, because the headline really asks the question. They were just kids, it says. What did they do wrong? Now, I want to bring that headline to you because this is exactly what Hamas is doing. This is where the lies and deceit comes into. If you look at propaganda coming out of Gaza right now, this happened a year ago. What's taking place right now, today, this week in Gaza, you're going to see Hamas doing proper propaganda. You're going to see children being starved. You're going to see children being killed. You're going to see the attacks against families. Everything that took place in this community, which the terrorists actually did to this community that we're talking about today, is what Hamas is trying to bring the lies and deceit to us, allowing the world to think that Israel is doing that. Israel's not doing that. They are dropping pamphlets saying, get out, move, we're going to take this building down. There's enough notice being given that whoever wants to can go up there and remove solar panels before the building's taken down. We're not getting that truth. Those lies and deceit are being told. So when this article says they were just kids, what did they do wrong? Obviously, they didn't do anything wrong. They were enjoying a Shabbat Saturday. They were enjoying a time of playing. And to add even more pain to this, before we left, the father told the interpreter, he said, I have another daughter. And I believe the time she was 15, that daughter's boyfriend was also killed in the attack. So when he said that, we stopped, I really couldn't enjoy the pastries as much because I was so entrenched in this story. And I said, no, wait a minute. Now my heart went to his other daughter. Could you imagine that this daughter lost her sister, her younger sister, and her boyfriend, all in one split second? Now, when you see the headline, the names and faces of children being slain in the Hezbollah attack, we hear that, we see the stories, and we want to go, oh, that is so tragic. I feel so sorry. I feel so sorry for that family. I feel so bad for what took place over there. But then you make it personal, and you realize that there's these families that are dealing with this. Now, the world, the press, the media wants to say, well, yeah, well, that's taking place 100-fold in Gaza. It is not. What's happening in Gaza and what may happen in Lebanon with Hezbollah is they are putting their own civilian people at life. Do you realize the tunnels in Gaza, and you're seeing them being exploded? Do you realize the tunnels in Gaza is so extensive that if Hamas wanted to, they could have put almost the entire population, if not the entire population of Gaza, into the tunnels and kept them safe? Here's the question to ask. Why do they do that? Why do they do that? Because they wanted the people to be targets. They wanted the civilians to be targets. Why would they do that? Because they want you and they want me to see the pictures of families and kids they left out, knowing that Israel is going to take out this facility, take out that building. They were putting bombs and all kinds of things in hospitals and in the schoolhouses. And what does Israel do? They take out the ammunition, they take out the bombs, they take out the weapons. And Hamas could have put families in the tunnels and protected them, but no, they put them in these places. And we hear this in the Western media and how Israel is destroying and killing all these people. And then you sit down with a father who just lost a 12-year-old daughter, has another daughter, another 15-year-old daughter, suffering from that and the loss of a boyfriend, and having to have mom and dad hold the daughter and then continue on to help bring aid to others. Words cannot explain where this is where the depth of truth needs to be revealed. This is where people really need to understand. It is not a Middle East war. It's terrorism, what's taking place. These are not military facilities. They're not military personnel that are being attacked. These are civilians. And that soccer field, there was not one piece of military equipment. There was not one piece of any kind of bomb or anything else that was a threat to Hezbollah. Anyhow, now, as we're in the Golan area, again, the Golan Heights, the Golan area, this carries over 700 square miles. So this is the Lebanon area with this village and this city. As we transition more to the Syria side, Syria brings much more of a threat to Israel. And when you have land that is this wide, it's hard to cover that with the military personnel. So I want to show you a picture of an IDF soldier. He was actually a reserve, and they have formed, I won't call it a militia. That's what some people on the ground would call this. They have formed a militia of 120 soldiers. These you get that picture, you think, well, these are militia. They want to cause damage. No, these are fathers. I'm blurring their face for security reasons, but you can see where he's there. He's with his 9-year-old son, and he met with us and his 9-year-old son, and we were asking questions and explaining and trying to get a lay of the land, and he was showing us, what everyday life is like for them. In the Israel military, if both males and females serve in the military, again, this is another lie and deceit. In America, when we have our kids in high school, our kids are enjoying high school. They're looking forward to college. They're looking forward to prom. They're looking forward to life out of high school. That doesn't happen in Israel. They're not thinking about that, because when they turn 18, they become part of the army. So in grade 11, their junior year in high school, they're starting to take classes for it, and they have all kinds of testing being done. They have practical tests. They have speaking Hebrew tests. They have physical tests. They have all kinds of tests. They start the junior year in high school, and then by the time they're a senior, they're told what their job's going to be when they get into the IDF. And for 2 years for women, for girls, and for 3 years for the guys, they serve in the IDF. So between age 20 and 21, your service time could be up. But then you become reservists, automatic reservists from 21 to age 40. And this militia, this group of 120 fathers up in the Golan, the youngest age is 28. And they're saying everybody who's taking up arms and protecting the land here is a father. We have families. He told me the story of Kavar village. Kavar village, again, was a peaceful village. And they had guns there, but they kept their guns. It was a peaceful village. When you look at that, it was just a little community. It was a perfect community. And they kept their guns locked up in one main building. Well, they were attacked at one time. And when they were attacked, what they did, the terrorists went after the first responders. And when they killed the first responders, no one could get to the guns, and the entire village was wiped out. And hearing this story, and this, I don't want to, I don't want to share stuff and give away this guy's identity, but he had family members there, I believe, the way he was speaking. He was speaking as a first-hand account of what took place. And he said, that's not going to happen here. So there's 120 men. They need equipment. They don't have the proper equipment, but they're protecting the land. And to hear his story, again, there's military bunkers there. There's things there from the past. He walked us through there. And again, he says, stay on the path I'm walking you, because if you get off the path, there's live mines here. People will get blown up here. So you have to understand, this is the kids know that. Kids don't go play out there. And again, this should be orchards. This should be vineyards. At one time it was vineyards. And then he took us over to the former headquarters of the Syrian army. And let me show you some pictures of that. Walking through this building, the building has been graffitied everywhere. And this goes back to 1967. And I asked the question, I said, why don't we just destroy this building? Why is this building still here? And he looked at me like that was the most odd question anybody ever asked him. He said, well, this is a constant reminder that we're going to be victorious. This was the headquarters of the Syrian army. This is where everything that they plotted and planned against Israel took place. And to walk in there and to understand that, and I would walk around in the rooms and think, what conversations took place here? What kind of demonic activity took place here? And it's 2 stories, and there's a stairwell there. And I walked up there and did a little video. Let me show you a quick video of what it's like to be inside the building. This is Pastor Dave. I'm walking in what once was the Syrian military headquarters until the War of 1967, and then this was taken over. There's a very famous battle that took place here, but this is where the Syrian army was headquarters. So I'm kind of walking down the old hallways into the rooms. This is kind of off limits now, but we were able to get in to kind of give you a view of what this looks like. But again, we're in Syria, and this is the Syrian headquarters of their army. This was their land and their headquarters until 1967. So it's an amazing structure, the size of it. And of course, you can see all the tagging on the wall now and how it's obviously no longer in use, but it is still kind of blocked off and off limits. But God gave us some favor and allowed us to come in to see what this looks like. So you can imagine what took place beyond these walls in Syria. All right, so there you actually get to walk inside the Syrian army headquarters at one point. In the War of 1967, Israel took it over, they conquered that, they took that, and they keep that building there to remind them that they will never lose this ground again and that they will be victorious, that God is on their side. And it was interesting, what you wouldn't have seen unless you were understanding this, was up on the 2nd floor. There's one special room up there. And I'm going to show you some video here of this room. Now, as you watch this video is a room is an honor to Eli Cohen. Now, Eli Cohen was a Mossad agent, but he was actually hung. He was actually killed in May of 1965. And as you look around the room here, you see this. He was hung in Syria. His body to this day has not been returned. But he was an Egyptian-born Israeli spy, basically. As you look at the photos on the wall and you see the honor that they're giving this man, he posed as a very successful Syrian businessman. And back in the 60s, because he was so successful in business, he was able to connect with some higher up, some of the mucky mucks of Syria. And he knew what the Syrians wanted to do against Israel. So being a spy, he took their plans, their battle plans, and he brought it back to Israel. And Israel was able to use that and actually defeat Syria and defeat the army. And that's how this building, this is how this entire headquarters was taken over and became victorious for Israel. So Israel believes that's still going to happen today. And it's interesting because as we went through Syria, again, I'm actually standing in the land of Syria and I'm looking out and you can see pictures here. This is where the vineyards, this was a winery. This was one of the most successful wineries in the north. This provided wine for almost the entire nation of Israel at one point. Again, and now it's a very small winery. It's a very small vineyard compared to what it was because it is, yes, a military zone. And I'm going to show you a picture. You won't know that this is behind me, but you see this tower, this radar tower, this satellite tower, this tower of intelligence. As I was there, again, the IDF is showing me around and what it looks like and what the plans are and what they're doing and how they're guarding it and what could be coming. Now, being a pastor, I understand the prophecy in Isaiah 17 that someday Damascus will be destroyed, and we're less than 40 miles from Damascus. Up on that hill behind me where that tower is, you can actually see Damascus. So, but what he told me, he says, he asked me, he said, do you follow what happened in Syria the last few years? Do you know the civil war? And I said, obviously, years of civil war, hundreds of thousands, they killed hundreds of thousands of their own. In fact, there could have been poison gas uses, all kinds of things that we use. Yes, I'm very well aware of what took place. And he said, do you know how Israel was protected? And my answer was, well, God. And he said, yes, God. He says, but also that tower behind you. He said, do you realize that we were listening to the former president of Bashar of Syria? We were listening to his conversations every day. We were able to understand everything that they were doing. We knew what was happening. That's how we were able to defend ourselves. In fact, if you follow the news, if you remember this, we're going back, Syria's a mess right now. No one's really in charge of Syria. It's a fraction of 6 different groups. Anyhow, and Turkey's involved with that. That's a different story for a different time. But before that former president, he was a dictator. His dad was there. Between his dad and him, they were there in charge for over 40 years. He fled to Russia. And see, all we were told was that former President Bashar and his family left for Russia. And then we're told that Israel began to bomb Damascus. Israel is bombing Damascus. Israel is bombing these facilities. Israel is taking advantage of the former president fleeing to Russia. That was the headlines. You want the whole story? And do you want the truth behind the story? He's saying, in order for Bashar to be allowed to leave, because Israel could have controlled that. They could have captured him. He said, in order for him to be allowed to leave, he had to give up the sites that he had ammunition stored in. And once he gave up the sites where the ammunition was stored in, then they let him run away to Russia. And then you go to Russia and do what you want to do. So what did Israel do? They had the location of where, Bashar, the former president, put the ammunition, the explosives, the bombs, the great grenade launchers, possibly even chemical weapons. I won't go that far, but there was all kinds of things there. So what do you think Israel did? That's what they bombed. They took them out. Of course, the Western media just wanted to blame Israel for that. And as he was telling the story, my mind went back to the father that we had just met previously with that. And I thought, here is a man with this great loss, and all he's doing is trying to enjoy a Sabbath at home. His family's trying to enjoy his time, and he's being attacked, and the world is saying, it's your fault. I'm looking at what's happening in Syria. I'm looking at what's happening in Lebanon. I'm looking at what's happening in Gaza. And the world, the Western media especially, wants to say, it's Israel's fault. We would have peace in the Middle East if it wasn't for Israel. There wouldn't be war in the Middle East if it wasn't for Israel. Because Israel is bombing, and Israel is killing, and Israel is destroying. And we're not getting the truth. We're getting lies. We're getting deceit. Why there's civilian loss of lives. And folks, I wanted to make sure I brought that truth to you. I thank you for watching this episode, the second episode, because I want you to understand the truth. I don't know where you stand with Israel, but I want you to know exactly what's going on. And I plan on going back, and once this experience was done, I want to go back, and now I have even more questions. I want to understand it. But you're going to see things happening in Gaza City. You may see things happening in the north, because Hezbollah will not disarm. And just last week, from the time I'm filming this, just last week, the Lebanese government said they went in, they gave the police in Lebanon permission to go into houses, because they know who the Hezbollah soldiers are, to go into houses, private houses, and confiscate any kind of weapons they may have. And they started doing that. They're not going to get them all. They started to do that. And if they try to take the infrastructure and rebuild that, Israel will bomb the equipment and not allow that to happen. I don't think we're going to be told that here in America. But you and I will be talking about that. All right, we're done with this episode again. Thank you for watching this. We're going to be back next week. I'm going to show you exactly what it's like to be in the IDF. I'm going to show you exactly what it takes to get there, and what happens when you become an IDF soldier, and what is life like. How do you become a parent? How do you become a father? How do you have a job and still serve your country and defend your land against terrorism? That will be episode number 3. Between now and then, I pray everything you do for the glory of God. God bless you. Thank you for watching Interpreting Time. Please like, comment, and subscribe.